Hello, and welcome to 2021 SFFCon. This is the Juggling Multiple Projects panel, where we are going to be discussing, hello, screenshot. That was a secret little taste of what's in store. We're going to be talking about the ways that authors and artists can manage working on one project at the same time, whether it's novels, short stories, art, films, strategies for structuring your time to meet deadlines, prevent burnout, and keep the creative process fun, even when there's a lot going on. And I know all of us do juggle a lot of things. So I'm delighted to have here today Martha Carr, Lawrence Schoen, Wendy Van Camp. Let's go ahead and go around. Oh, and I'm your moderator, Anthea Sharp. Let's go around and introduce ourselves. Martha, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Martha Carr. That's Lois Lane growling in the background. And I am indie published. I was tried published in the past. She's also deaf, so there's no point in yelling. And I'm currently working on several projects within the Orserin universe.
I want to swing back around to you, Martha, and you can have a chance to do that again. Lawrence, go ahead and tell us who you are, what you write, what projects you're juggling.
I'm Lawrence. Excuse me. I'm Lawrence M. Schoen, and I'm a hybrid author. I started out trad. I had a couple books with the Big Five publisher, and made the jump to more indie work, which is what I've been doing lately. Completely different world. The trad stuff was big idea, deep, thoughtful, reflective, lots of concepts and critical issues of the day, done with uplifted animals for people with advanced degrees in their science fiction reading. Nowadays, I write light, humorous science fiction, which are more like potato chips. It's a very different kind of thing to write, and it writes a lot faster. And I think I'm on this panel because I'm usually running about 5 to 8 different books at the same time in one degree or another.
And that was the sneak peek we got there was a shot of Lawrence's organization system. So we'll have a chance to see how he writes at least 5 different books at the same time.
In theory.
All right, Martha, let's swing back around to you. So you mentioned that you were formerly traditionally published in what genres?
I started out in thriller and never financially got very far and could not figure it out. Somebody's trying to deliver something. I wish they'd stop. And switched to urban fantasy, and it took off almost immediately. And created the Orserin universe with Michael Angeli, and we have about 200 books in it so far. And I'm generally juggling about 3 to 4 projects a month.
So are you writing in that universe or also coordinating other authors?
Both. We have other authors who write in the universe. There's audio. Craig Martell and he somehow talked me into a strange road trip for this fall. And so there's a lot of things to coordinate. Before COVID, I used to go around and see a lot of fans. And so that's the start of that again. There's a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
And Lois.
Yes.
Who's determined to be the next panelist. So.
All righty. Wendy, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Wendy Van Camp. I'm a speculative poet. I am an author. I am an illustrator, a podcaster, and a couple other hats we're just not even going to go into. I think of myself as a hybrid author these days. I tend to do my poetry traditionally, as in I submit my poems to magazines and work with the editor. They select me, and then sometimes I have to edit according to their editorial commands. But I'm also an indie author, and I am firmly in belief that indie is the strong way to go. I'm also a member of the 20 Books, like Martha Carr. I definitely know who she's talking about there. But I published my first book, the poetry collection. The plan is indie, but I think in the future I will move it to traditional simply because in the poetry market, if you indie publish, it's still frowned upon. They're a bit old-fashioned that way. But for regular books, for instance, I have a historical series going on, and I'm also working on a steampunk trilogy. Those books will definitely be indie, and I wouldn't do it any other way. Let's see. One of my main hats is being a blogger. I have a blog called No Wasted Ink, which is a blog for readers and writers of science fiction and fantasy. It's about 6,000 subscribers at this point. I have a Twitter feed that supplements it at 25K, and a few other dribbles and drabbles in social media. So definitely it is being read, and I have to invite a lot of people onto the blog. I interview about 25 authors a year. I invite people to guest post on my blog, and each person gets a 2-week promotional campaign in my social media, not only with me, but with my co-marketing co-op people. So,
right. And so you have you're going to share with us your way that you wrangle all those.
I actually
chief cat herder, really.
I am kind of a cat herder. Well, I also, though, am an anthology person now. I actually have edited my first poetry anthology, and I use Trello to manage that as well, although I think I'm going to save that for the next panel. So I have many methods, but I'm not just all online. Even though I love Trello, I actually am more paper-based, and I use a bullet journal. I have a Filofax for my editorial calendar, and a few other tools that we'll bring out as the time goes on.
Great. Yes, we're gonna have a little show and tell, which will be terrific. I'm your moderator, Anthea Sharp. I write USA Today bestselling fantasy and science fantasy, game lit, and also fairy tale retellings. Like Lawrence and Martha, I was traditionally published back in the mid-2000s in romance, and then jumped the fence to indie and consider myself a hybrid author at this point. I like to sell some of my rights, like audio, and I write and publish short stories. And so I think also for all of us, having a foot kind of in both worlds gives us an interesting perspective and ability to kind of steer our own ship in a different way. So let us get into the nitty gritty of the ways to organize. And Wendy, you mentioned a couple. We saw Lawrence's little thing, but there are as many ways to organize your business, your life, your calendar as there are authors out there. Really, there's paper planners. There's sort of hybrid things. There's an incredible array of tools online. Everything from sort of apps like Things, which is a very basic kind of app, to all the way into something like programs like Trello, OneNote. I know many authors lean heavily upon things that are cloud-based, things that you can do like on your computer, like Excel, which maybe was what Lawrence's sheet was in, programs like Scrivener, Plotter, Eon Timeline, the list goes on. So, Lawrence, why don't you tell us about your system?
Well, I should start by I just want to start by saying I was in 20 Books, went to my first 20 Books conference 3 years ago. Martha was giving a keynote, and I was blown away. I was brand new to the indie world, and Martha got up there and just inspired me. So thank you for that, very much so. Back to the topic at hand. My background is in academia. I have a doctorate in research psychology, so I'm looking for an operational definition, if you will, of productivity. And it's not just word count, but it's word count as a measure of anything that's moving me forward in my professional career as a writer. So it's not just these are words that are going to go into a piece of fiction, but if I'm writing a newsletter to send out to my followers, that word count counts. If I'm reaching out to bring people to the blog feature that I've been running weekly for 10 years, and I think I had Martha in there, and I need to invite Anthea and Wendy as well, that counts. So if, Nick, if you're listening, if you would throw up the spreadsheet onto the screen, What I do, and I apologize, it's tiny, so I'm going to go through it to give you an idea. This is, and I'm going to open it up bigger on my own screen so I can see what the heck it is. This is from last September. Running across the top in blue and red, these are each different projects. They may be books, they may be entire series. And then running down the side is the day of the month. And each little cell is how many words were done on that day in that project. Off to the far right is the daily total. And then there's a running total in all of this as well. And at the bottom of the page, it's constantly telling me where I'm at, what I'm accomplishing on each. And so you can see in this example, the column with the most activities is eating authors. I was doing a book of the last 10 years of my weekly blog. And so there was a lot of time spent on there. There's another header that says KLI. I'm also the founder and director of the Klingon Language Institute. And we are doing things like publishing translations. We're the folks who restored Hamlet to its original language of Klingon. And so when I'm working with authors there, and herding Klingon-speaking authors and translators is a whole different group of cats. But time spent there gets accounted for as well, because all of this is moving me forward in my position as an author. What I like about this is it utilizes, and we can take that down, Nick, because it's really too tiny to see.
I have a quick question, though.
Oh, yeah.
So is that an Excel spreadsheet that you put together?
It's an Excel knockoff. It's a spreadsheet. It'll open in Excel. It'll open. I think I'm using some free version of Microsoft Office that is not Microsoft Office, and because it's free, I think it's LibreOffice. I don't remember anymore because it works, and so I don't have to think about it.
So do you have then further in-depth tabs for each of your projects on that, or is it just simply tracking time and word count?
It's just that my goal on any given day is to log 2,000 words, and anything over 2,000 words gets put into a buffer. That if I'm having a bad day and I only do 10 words, well, the buffer is sitting there, and my intention is never to use the buffer. And in fact, but it's so I don't feel bad. I don't tear into myself if I don't get my working done. Right now, I've got about 40 days worth in the buffer, so I'm golden, and I can take a day and say, it's a beautiful day just to take my dog for a walk. But the reason I do multiple projects at the same time and project that out over months, because you would have seen some of the columns were empty because I wasn't working in them that month, but maybe the month before or a month later. There's a principle in psychology called release from proactive interference. Fancy name, simple concept. We've all had the experience, or most of us have had the experience back when you were in college, you're studying for finals, you've got that econ final coming up, and you're reading it and reading it and reading it, and you reach the point of saturation where you don't remember what you just read. And you think, I'm done. I can't study anymore. But you're not done. You're just done with econ. If you switch domains to something else and art history, you're immediately revived. And you can apply the same concept to your work as an author. And it could simply be, I'm moving from one science fiction novel to another science fiction novel, or I'm moving from writing the first draft of a novel to editing this other novel. And it frees up the brain. All that fatigue that you were building up, I just can't do this anymore, goes away, and you get to start fresh. And it's about working smarter rather than working harder.
I love that. And I love how you've taken your advanced study and then applied it to your own author life. And by setting that up, I think we've all had the experience of sort of switching gears. People talk about, cleanse the palate, refresh what you're doing. And
it's not multitasking, because there have been some studies in more recent years that multitasking doesn't necessarily work, but rather it's maximizing your available working hours before you just fatigue, and that's different from multitasking in this kind of instance.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. So interesting. So Wendy, let's take a look at your show and tell.
Oh, okay. Well, I have several. I think I'd like to start with the paper and then move toward the electronic, if that's okay. I don't use spreadsheets. I hardly they make me kind of jittery. I'm sorry. I'm just one of those people. But I actually do a more analog way of planning. I use a bullet journal, and I'm not that I really want to show my thing here, but see if I can find. Here's an empty
quick flash.
page.
Yeah.
Here we go. So there's no data on this, but this is a weekly spread. And as you can see, each day is numbered. I keep track of when I'm online. So like today in the week for this week, I will put an X just to let my know. There's a little thing right this way, right here. This is my to-do. And each week I put down what I'm going to prioritize for that week. And then I put to-do lists in these boxes, and I track my menus because, you know, it's just something I do because this is an all-purpose kind of thing. I also have monthly spreads. For instance, right here, let me go for this way. There we go. You can see in June, where this is, I have a writing column and I have an events column. And down the middle are the days of the week. So when I do my writing and my dailies, I transfer this to the monthly so that I know at a glance what I did each month. And notes in my daily or my weekly rather, if something comes up that I want to remember, I jot it down. At the end of the month, if I feel it's something that is important that I need to remember, I also copy it to this monthly thing right here. And then I track a lot of medical stuff, which I'm not going to show you. For my editorial calendars, I use a Filofax. I have a beautiful crimson Malden. I love this thing. It's so beautiful. Leather smell and all that. But it's just a simple monthly. And this is how I track when my blog posts, internet, IG and all that comes in. A lot of what I do on social media is so ingrained in me, I don't need to track it. I just do it now because it's been almost a decade. And I have a lot of back-end systems that automate what I do. Now, when I say automate, that doesn't mean a machine does it. I do create everything that goes into it, but the machines do all the posting for me and takes that burden off.
So you pre-schedule like for the entire month or for a week or how?
Actually, I do a lot of things by the year. I do my blog by the year. I will put out a call for authors to interview, and usually I can get a full year's worth of interviews in 6 hours. I'm that popular.
And you just schedule out for the whole entire year?
I schedule it all in WordPress. WordPress is set to automatically post it all over the place. It's picked up through WordPress to my marketing partners, and my reach is like in the millions because of that, just from WordPress alone.
Your brain can just deal with it and then be done. That's so impressive.
Yeah, it gives me time to work on my projects. So I actually will set up my schedule. I work on a quarter system, and I like to focus on one thing at a time. Even though I'm juggling many projects, I have certain times of the year where I do certain tasks. So like around right after Christmas through about the first week of January is when I do most of my blog work. I just know that I'm going to be setting up my systems. I have something that handles Twitter for me. So I have like a general marketing campaign that will take care of all that. So like when I format a blog post, I not only do the blog post in WordPress, I also set up the 2-week Twitter campaign in my other program that handles. I do pay money for it. It's not free, and it's probably more pricey than I would like, but it takes a huge burden off of me. Recently, I've just switched my Instagram to business so that I'm able to schedule. Believe it or not, Canva has a free scheduling, with the pros thing, will schedule your Instagram now. And between that and using a program called Later, it handles all my Canva things. And then if I want to do photos, I can put it into Later, and I coordinate them in my Filofax. Let's see. And then finally, I have the good old story Bibles, all on paper, character sheets, locations, all that good stuff. And I create one of these ARC notebooks for each series that I'm working at. This one happens to be my Austin Regency series. It's kind of thin, but I don't tend to put in things that I don't think are relevant. I just have the bare basics so I can keep track of my characters, what they look like, what their interests are, if they have an arc. I have all that in my Bible and in location descriptions, but just enough so it keeps my details correct. But other than that, I don't go into huge things.
It's like you're outsourcing little pieces of your brain into your different little paper. Like you grab the Filofax. Okay, social media time. Whereas so you don't keep it all in your bullet journal, which I know I've tried bullet journaling before, and it just gets too scattered. So I really love that approach.
But I have a quarter system. I know, like in the first quarter, this is the book I'm going to be focused on. In this quarter, I'm going to maybe do a poetry book. The next quarter, I'm going to do another. I know 20 books kind of recommends publishing a lot of books at a time. I'm not kind of into that, but I do want to be up to at least 2 books a year. For me, that seems to be enough. And because I'm a poet, frankly, I can't be churning out word count. Poetry doesn't work that way.
Right.
But I use the Trello to track my poetry, and I think we'll switch.
Yeah, pop that up.
Hopefully I can get this. Let me hit share.
Yeah, and we have a great comment from Super Suit Guy who points out that pen and paper keeps you ransomware proof. So absolutely. Or if there's a glitch in the matrix, you don't lose all your work. So there's some reasons to go pen and paper definitely as well.
Yeah, screen works. Oh, I'm sorry here. And why is it not sharing my screen? And window. Here we go. I think this is the one I want. Okay, Nick, if you wouldn't mind sharing. Very good. This is, I believe, my author interview tracker. Now, you can see this file right here. This line is where I input my authors. When I put out a call, I schedule my authors on a predetermined schedule every 2 weeks throughout the entire year, if I can get that many people at a time. And usually I do these days. But once they come in, my email timestamps their information. And I only schedule on completed interviews. So I may reach out to an author, say, sure, I'm happy to have you. I send them the questionnaire, but they are not scheduled in my system until I actually have something in hand from them.
So you don't have to
Yeah, and I make it very clear you're being scheduled based on what you send back to me and how quickly you do. So that usually simplifies my process. People are trying to get back to me quickly because they want to get their spot in line. But anyway, once they arrive, they go into that first column, which says receiving. I set up a card in Trello for each author that comes in. And on that card, I create a checklist. And recently I've discovered there is a template feature in Trello that when I first started my system wasn't available. I'll show it on, I'll at least explain it. But anyway, I set up a checklist for each part of the system this author is going to travel through until the end when their thing posts.
Wonderful. So one of the things I'm hearing from you, Wendy, is that you're really very intelligently leaning on the automation features, whether it's pre-scheduling or just getting those systems set up. And I don't think actually we have time to go through every little bit of your Trello board. So that we have time to get to Martha.
Anyway, each column is just what stage of the process they're in. So I know if they've been sent certain information, or I know that they've arrived. I know that their Twitter campaign has been set or not. And as I go through their process, not only do I put a checkbox on each card, but I also move them through the system until at the end of the year, everybody's on the other end, basically. So, and I do the same thing with my books. Let me, hopefully, let's stop sharing, but I'm going to pull up another one. really quick. I don't want to take too much time. And there we go.
So for those who
Mm.
don't know necessarily, Trello is an online tool. It's a subscription, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
but there's a free version. Like most things, there's a less robust free version so that you can try things out. But that is Trello.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, I wasn't able to pull the other one up. I'm sorry. But I did the same thing for the planets. I was going to show you the Trello board that I used to create my poetry book that's behind me on the desk. What I do is I set up all the chapters. I set up all the intro stuff, which is like the book cover and all that. Everything gets a card. And then I decide how many poems are going to be in each chapter and what the subject matter is going to be. And then I create, again, a checklist. And then I just slowly but surely fill out the checklist until I have the completed book in Trello. And I also use Trello to give me pointers where I store things. So maybe the poem is stored in Google Docs, maybe it's in Dropbox. It doesn't matter. It could even be on my own computer, and I just put down a location.
And it can go find it. Yeah.
OneNote. One place.
OneNote does. OneNote has a super robust search function, and is a really great way to organize. And I'll talk about that when we swing around to me. But I want to give Martha a chance to talk about your system. So thanks, Wendy.
So I do use a calendar pretty much like everybody else, or I would remember nothing. And this is more for the broad strokes of places I'm supposed to show up. And if there's an actual meeting, for regular monthly things like making sure covers are done or blurbs are written, I use Slack, and everyone I work with is also in there with me, so that I can easily go back and forth and put them all. Each book has its own channel with the different people who might be contributing their piece in that channel with me. And also, I like to keep things as simple as possible because first and foremost, I'm an author. And for me, if things get too complex, it eats away at the writing time. But I do use Scrivener for writing. And I love the way you can move scenes around so easily. And I also like that it's got a word count so you can break it down. And like Lawrence, I go backwards and figure out how many words I have to do a day in order for this to be on time. And I also like to build in extra space. So if a nice day comes along, I can go do something else. And so that helps me to keep 3 or 4 books going per month. And I also agree, too, that especially like the Lyric Chronicles, we're at 12 books and still going. And I need a break sometimes from certain characters and just let them sit. And it's helpful to go and do something a little different, like Case Files of an Urban Witch is in the same universe, but it's a totally different flavor with a recipe in the back. It's kind of more cozy in a way. And so, I get to take a break in the sentence structure as well. And also, I try to always touch everything only once. If somebody needs something from me or an answer, try to do it immediately. If I'm turning in it's just everything is done once. And that way it doesn't fall through the cracks. And if I'm answering someone, I date my answer. I date the files. I date everything. It makes it easier to find. If for some reason more than one copy shows up, I can tell which one was my last version. And it cuts down on the confusion. And also, when I could afford to, I hired an assistant. I went looking pretty early, even if I could only afford a few hours, those few hours were extremely valuable. And my income actually started to increase the more I had an assistant. And I think that, part of it was probably the audience was building, but also it was because we more consistently were able to show up on Facebook, put out a newsletter, offer contests. It just got much more complex. And I found someone who adores spreadsheets, adores them. And So we were able to start putting systems into place. And for example, we do pre-orders whenever we can. Sometimes something happens and you're screaming for the end. But when we can, we do pre-orders, and we always make sure that everything is we have a system now where everything is in a package. The blurb, the keywords, the cover, the author notes, everything is together. And we don't put it in pre-order until all of that is together. And so we create systems as much as we can. And then occasionally I go around kind of like the world of online, and I check to make sure it seems like everything is cooking along. And if something's not, then that's where I can start to ask, are there a lot of things on the list? Do I need to help you out here and do some of it? Do we need to get somebody else? And also, I pull lines from each book, 15 lines to hand to my assistant, funny or dangerous or thrilling lines. And then she can make graphics with those. Those get done at the same time that package gets done, so that when it's time to start marketing, it's all in place and we're not searching for one. Nothing moves forward until that entire thing is done.
So very similar to Wendy, like if you want an author interview,
right,
you got to have your ducks in a row. Yeah.
And that's great too, because it motivates people to do their part. You gave them a dog in the race. Yeah, that's great. And I think for me, if I don't have some sort of system in place, I'm not sure how you would juggle so much. We also have other authors who write in Orosaren. And so this became necessary to also be able to say to them, this is what we're going to do. These are your responsibilities. And if I notice that my assistant Grace, who's wonderful, has asked for something and not gotten it, I'll step in and ask as well, because I know that me asking, suddenly it appears. And so, yeah, it's a team effort. It's become a team effort, and it means that I can be the writer still and spend most of my day hitting the word count and not trying to do the marketing over here and then the spreadsheets over there. It just makes it a lot saner. So, even if you can only afford a few hours a month, experiment with it. I asked around and just found the most wonderful assistant, Grace. And it's gotten to the point too where when people want to be in my newsletter, they don't ask me anymore. They just go ask Grace, which is the smart thing to do, because that's what I'm going to do, is tell you, go ask Grace.
Wonderful. So you mentioned that you also make use of a Kanban board.
No.
That was that Wendy? Yeah. So do you have, Wendy, can you show the Kanban board, or, because that's a really interesting organizational thing too.
Well, I did actually, but let's see if I can. I actually showed it to you for my author interviews. I wasn't able to pull up my one for the planets, but I can try again.
So yours is
new. I'm new with the screen sharing here on.
So yours is an online Kanban board.
I use Trello. Oh, here it is, right here. Hold on, I can.
Because I was thinking,
Nick, if you could show it real quick. There we go. This is what I use for my book organization. So I will create one of these for every poetry book that I do. I don't necessarily use a Kanban board for my novels. I track that with paper products. But when I do poetry, I just find that it works really well to do it online. It meshes with my system better. So as you can see, I have the cover of the book was stored here. All the information, the blurb and all that is all here.
The cards. Yeah.
These are all the chapters. Yes.
Great. I'm going to swing back around then. For those who are curious about the analog Kanban board, and that is Kanban, go ahead and take a look online, and that's usually like a 3-part structure. There's upcoming, there's in process, and then there's done. And people often use colorful Post-its, and then you're actually physically moving your projects like down the Kanban board. And for some people who need to be a little more hands-on, a little more, sticky notes right by their desk, that can be a really effective way if you don't want to go deep into spreadsheets or things like that.
I actually thought of starting one of those, but I didn't have the wall space.
Yeah.
So I'm better off with Trello, I think.
Google Calendar is also totally free. We use Google Calendars in different colors, and the colors denote if it's on pre-order, if it's coming out, if it's a box set, and you can put meetings in there, and it'll tell you. It's a very simple method if you're just starting out and you don't really feel confident online and you don't have a lot of money. Google Calendars has a lot of options that are very useful, and you can pin them. If you're using Slack, you can pin the calendar within Slack as well, and it becomes extremely useful. I mean, we still use Google Calendars.
I'll echo that. Not so much this past year, but in earlier years, I have a very active convention schedule. I do a tremendous amount of programming, and I use Google Calendar and the color coding to mark different things that I'm doing, panels as opposed to readings, and also different colors if there's something I'm hoping to squeeze into the schedule that I want to attend as an audience member, so that you're on the go. I don't know how many people here attend conventions, you don't have a lot of time, and I like Google products because they move with you from one device to another, and I can call up on my phone. Oh my gosh, it's 3:00. I'm supposed to be at SFFCon or what have you, and I've got a panel. Crap, I'm in the wrong room, and anything that allows you to maximize the information and access it quickly.
One thing about Google Calendar, if I could just add, you can also put your Zoom link in there, and that is how I manage all my virtual, because I'm doing like one con a month at this point. I've been everywhere this past year, but I like that I can set up each panel in my Google Calendar, and I always put the Zoom link there, and I know it's always available no matter how I'm getting there. If I have to switch to my phone suddenly, I can click on the calendar there and grab the panel, either StreamYard or Zoom. If I'm using my laptop like I'm using today, it's just there. And I love the convenience of Google Docs for that kind of thing. But
That's what got me here.
My bullet journal is so simple because I do use Google Calendar for all my timed, planned kind of things. I don't put it in the bullet journal is more just to track my to-do list, making sure I'm getting done what I wanted to get done that day, and to set a priority list for the week that's based on my quarterly goals to help me move along with what I need to do. So
sort of big picture.
I'm not a word count kind of person, but it does help me keep track of the multiple projects that I'm working on and switching out at an appropriate time. So if I'm running over on a novel project, I know that I have to do my anthology at a certain month, for April, for National Poetry Month. So I needed to shut down that project, even though I wasn't quite where I wanted to be on it, so I could move in and be on time for my publisher. So for me, it's effective. I don't know if it would work for everyone, but for me, at least, I like it.
I want to point out, Martha, you were saying, color coding, and then Lawrence also that struck me from your lovely spreadsheet too, and even your gradiated as you went down the month. It went from yellow to green, which on your side, which I thought was that is definitely, I think, it's something that maybe seems like for some authors like colors, bells and whistles, but that it can be such a really a shortcut for your brain to sort of signal.
And that's the intent. You on the spreadsheet, more words done changes the color. So certain colors pop out and you go, whoa, that was a good day. I somehow did 6,000 words. I was only hoping for 2. Great. 4,000 goes into the buffer. And then, of course, the cumulative totals as the month goes down, the colors keep getting darker and darker and darker. And that's a beautiful thing to see too.
I like it.
Yeah. So
it also can trigger for, if you have an assistant, it triggers for them if they see colors popping up and they know they don't have something. They know to say, hey, did you realize there's a pre-order coming up and I don't have the blurb? Yeah. So it is a shortcut for the brain where your brain goes, wait a minute.
I'm stealing your packet idea because
Nice.
invariably I get to the end of a project. I have a book, as an example, coming out on Tuesday, and it's like, wait, have I sent in my keywords to Amazon yet? No, I haven't. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I like to think I'm organized, but compared to that, not organized at all.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
I think we can all, everyone feels like they can up their game. No one is 100% perfectly organized, but I think one thing this panel has really showed and explored is, lean into your strengths and leverage those systems, whether it's automation or getting someone to help you, which is going to be a great thing in the long run. Lawrence?
Can I share another tool? Because I'm
please.
not just spreadsheet guy. I'm like so many of us. I focus a lot of effort on series, and when I've spent the time to create a universe for a 7 or 8 or 9 book series, I may be tired of the characters, but I'm not tired of the universe, and I don't want to have to start all over again. So I now have 3 spin-off series that are running simultaneously from the original universe, and I create wikis.
Yeah.
And the wikis have the this is like humorous space opera. So the wikis have the characters. The wikis have the alien races. The wikis have individuals within those alien races. The wiki has the names of stars, the names of planets in those stellar systems, the names of landmarks we visited on those planets, like a particular hotel or restaurant or museum. And it's all there, and it's cross-referenced. And where this has really paid off was when I opened up a new series to a co-author.
Wow.
And I said, okay, here, read all the books that have come before. Find the time to do that if you can. But when in doubt, here's your password to the wiki, and you can access all of it. And they then add to it. So I have to keep reading the wiki myself to see what they've done. But we've all probably had the experience where you write book 1, and 3 books later, you contradict yourself.
Yeah.
And you don't catch it, but the fans
names.
do.
Yep.
And I had a novella I had to write because in between 2 books, at the end of book 1, there's a character who's in a coma. At the beginning of book 2, he's fine. And people were saying, what happened? Well, interstitial novella. Boom, there it goes.
This is how we got out of the coma. So Martha, you guys obviously with LMPBN have, tons of series you're running, so how do you do like Series Bible? Do you also have wikis that you have going, or?
Yes, there's 2 things. Saren has a wiki. And so we can go back and look to see the broader strokes, but we've also had pretty much the same beta readers since the beginning. And they have a Slack channel. And so I can go in there and ask, because I can't quite remember, did he lose his left arm or his right arm? And inevitably they will remember and know for sure. They'll tell me what page to go find it in. And so it's really valuable to create this core bunch of readers who also read the book before it goes out. And they're not reading it for editing or typos. They're reading it for what Lawrence was talking about, where you accidentally, change someone's name.
Continuity.
For continuity. And to ask, they were doing this 2 pages ago. How'd they get over here? But they're the best. They're better than any wiki at remembering all the tiny, I don't know how they do it. And as a group. And so, I'm smart enough to go and ask, Be humble is a really good, useful tool.
Mm-hmm. And and don't feel like you have to carry it. Work smarter, not harder, I guess, is a lot of what's coming out of here too, is find the systems, use them, leverage them. Don't be afraid to ask, to reach out. And I wanted to really quickly share my systems. Yeah. So sort of segueing from Series Bibles, I use OneNote, which it's a wonderful program that you can put links in, put images in, do multiple pages and then subpages and pages in pages, and it's completely searchable, which is great. So you just put in whatever it is you're looking for, and it will take you directly to that page, which I used to keep like files and things in paper, and then you're just kind of rustling through. And that is definitely one of the big advantages of using a digital system, is that ability to search and get to your thing. But the other thing I use is, this is Tammy Lebrecht's fun with, so the publishing planner. And I adapt this for my own needs, but it has a weekly planner, and then places where you can put notes, where you can track social media stuff. One of the things that I really like about it is that it also has in the back a page for your novel, for your projects, where you're putting everything down, your keywords, your ISBNs, your blurbs, like it's all there. And I do like just the pen and paper, just it connects me to my projects in a different way. I've always been a list maker. I love scratching stuff out and adding new things. This also has a quarterly planner, which is nice, and a bunch of calendars. So it's a pretty robust paper tool. So between that and OneNote, and I also have an assistant, happen to be married to him, and I'm trying to get him to quit his job so he can come work for me more. And OneNote is a shareable program as well, where you can both be working at the same time, like Google programs as well, where, two people can be working. I want to circle back around to Slack, SLACK, which is if you have a project where it's not just you, where there's multiple people who need input and need to look at stuff. Like Martha mentioned, that's a really wonderful program for a group to kind of work on and organize. I think, Wendy, do you know, can you do that in Trello as well? Can you?
Yes, you can. They actually just upgraded to something called Workspaces, and you can set up certain boards to be accessible to only you, or it could be accessible to a group that you designate. So if you had something for an assistant that you wanted them to track in Trello, you can set it up that way. You do have to pay a little more, of course. You can't do that for free, but you can do it. And I believe Notion is the same way too. You can set up certain areas in Notion, and they have Kanban features in there. And it's almost like a hybrid between OneNote and Trello together. And I've been using Notion a little bit more lately, although I'm still kind of learning. And I don't know though. I love my paper. It'd be really hard to get rid of it.
That's good. And
it's a good system though. It's very good.
So definitely there are so many different ways to organize and just kind of go around and try different things and see what works for you, and follow those experts. Follow, Lawrence, Martha, Wendy, the masters of their craft. So we are coming up on the end of our panel. I want to go around one more time and just say where people can follow you and Lawrence.
My website, of course, is lawrencemshone.com. Type my name into Amazon and the lots of books you can find. The 31st comes out on Tuesday. On Twitter, I am at Klingon Guy. We won't go into that much further. And on Facebook, I'm Lawrence M. Shone, and the author page is, I think, Lawrence M. Shone, Writer Guy.
He's a guy. All right, Wendy. Briefly, where can we find you?
I'm again Wendy Van Camp. You can find me basically at No Wasted Ink. My blog is nowastedink.com. My IG is No Wasted Ink. My Facebook author page is also No Wasted Ink. But unfortunately, my Twitter is W Van Camp. So, yeah, it just kind of worked out that way. I started it before I picked up the branding. If you do type in wendyvancamp.com, though, you will find your way to my website. I have a dual address on that. And anyway, I hope to see you all.
Great. And Martha?
First of all, Lawrence, my respect for you has grown now that I know you're the Klingon guy.
Mad props.
Yes. And by the way, that famous troll in the Lyra Chronicles is Yumfuck Tiberius Troll. So you would know what that means.
I know what that means.
Yes. And anyway, you can find me at marthacarr.com, but also look for me at the Martha Carr fans on Facebook, because there's a lot that goes on in the Facebook group. And there's also an Orosaren fans Facebook group, and there's contests, and there's a lot of chatter. And also the first of every month, I started this during COVID every month. Now it's just, or every week, I think I was doing. Now it's just once a month, first Friday, Pizza Fan Friday. I give away 5 pizzas in the US, but anybody all over the world can join in, and it's gotten hilarious. They talk over each other. It's on Zoom. It's open to anyone. It's 1 p.m. Central Time every first Friday. Authors show up, and it's an amazing free-for-all that somehow came out of COVID. And so you can, find me there. I answer everyone. If you email me, I answer everyone. And I'm just having a blast, always looking for ways to have more fun with the writing and not let the business side pull me over too much. That's pretty much my whole goal.
Wonderful. Great. And you can find me at antheasharp.com, and my book's on all retailers and audio, print, hardcover, and ebook. All right. Well, thank you all so much. This was really great. I have pen and paper, tons of notes, things I'm going to follow up on. And I hope the folks watching pick up some good tips as well. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. And Lois Lane says bye as well.
Bye, Lois. Woof.
Hey, if you like that panel and you're looking to continue your author journey,
or if you're just looking for a group of like-minded people,
all striving to improve their craft and grow as authors, our community at KSM might just be what you're looking for
some reading, writing, and everything in between.
Come on over and join us at Keystroke Medium.